your number one asset. So you got to go into going, your number one asset is you, right? And and what you invest in, if you're your number one asset, is your mindset. Okay. uh uh and how do you work on that? What you watch, read, listen to, hang around. Okay. Your
Mhm.
skill set, right? If you ever read Think and Grow Rich, it's about specialized knowledge, organized planning. So money is a result of creating value in the marketplace. So if you want to make more money, if money's tight, that's because your skills are lacking and you have to work on your skills, or you've got a lot of skills and nobody knows you have them, right?
Mm.
Which brings us to the third point, is your network. Money, mindset, skill set, network. Who do you know? But more important, who knows you? So now if I'm working on myself, or what I call working on my game, those are the things that move the needle. It's not an investment.
Hello, and welcome to the Infinite Financial Freedom Podcast, where we empower you with financial literacy and guide you on your journey to financial freedom. I'm Josh Metal. I'm here today with Curtis May, owner and founder of Practical Wealth Solutions, the host of Practical Wealth Show podcast. Curtis's primary focus is to help individuals become financially free by following sound principles of wealth creation and that have endured for centuries around the world. And Curtis has been at this for 35 years. He's passionate about the idea that knowledge, not money, knowledge is our number one asset. So, Curtis, I'm really excited for our show and our conversation today. Thank you for being here, my friend.
My pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to just talk about my favorite subject, which is money, success, and winning. Right? So
Let's get after it. And what a cool time to do this, right? As we're recording this, it is the middle of December 2023. We're going into a new year. And for me, that's always an opportunity to kind of reflect. Am I on the right path? Am I headed in the direction that I intend to end up at the end of my life? So this is a great opportunity for us to check in with ourselves and reset if we've gotten off the path. So Curtis, let's just jump in. I'd love you to expound just a little bit on this idea that knowledge is our number one financial asset rather than dollars and cents. So can you explain that for us?
yes, because I want to add on to the point you just made. One of the things I've been asking my clients is the what I call the Dan Sullivan question, but I
Mm.
shorten it out. So all progress, if you've read 10x is in 2x, is measured backwards, right? So I'll ask them, and this is which I want your listeners to ask yourself. So if we're recording this, if we were having this question December 2024, or 12 months
Mm.
from time wherever you're listening to this, what has to happen professionally, financially, and personally in order for you to be happy with your progress, right? And specifically, now I want, because I have clients, I want more money. How much more money? I want more passive income. How much? What is your passive income now? What do you want your passive income to be then? And so now you got a 1 year target, and you should break it down into 90-day objectives and then measure that. And so that you're not like a wandering generality. So how much extra money do you want? How much money do you want to grow your business? How much do you want to have saved? How much non-preferred debt do you want to get rid of? And I think that as you go into the year, that's how I would be framing my goals. And then measure from where you started. Because what we'll do is say, oh, my goal is to save 25,000, but I only saved 12. Okay, but that's progress you've made, because you have to measure from where you started. If you started out with 1,000, then that's amazing progress. And don't
That's
beat
right.
yourself up. So anyway, that's I wanted to. So
Uh,
now I'll
th-
go back. What was the
that,
original question?
that
So
that that
I
that's the that's no. This was beautiful. I like the pivot you just took, and I think this whole podcast is going to take pivots. So you're driving this spaceship, my friend. So I
oh,
like
the
it.
principles, right? Here are the principles. So what happened? Or no, why investing in yourself? So what happens is, the way I look at it is that, and what I've been taught and have read, and we talked about before we start recording, about Kiyosaki. I'm cut from that cloth, so I've kind of taken that approach, but try to put it into step one, two, three, four, steps that you can actually implement, because his
Yes.
more is more on, it's philosophical, not very tactical. So I try to put tactical things to it. And so, but your number one asset, so you got to go into going, your number one asset is you, right? And and what you invest in, if you're your number one asset, is your mindset. Okay. uh uh and how do you work on that? What you watch, read, listen to, hang around. Okay. Your
Mm-hmm.
skill set, right? If you ever read Think and Grow Rich, it's about specialized knowledge, organized planning. So money is a result of creating value in the marketplace. So if you want to make more money, if money's tight, that's because your skills are lacking and you have to work on your skills, or you've got a lot of skills and nobody knows you have them, right? Which
Mm.
brings us to the third point, is your network. Money, mindset, skill set, network. Who do you know? But more important, who knows you? So now if I'm working on myself, or what I call working on my game, those are the things that move the needle. It's not an investment per se. There's no investment. There's no, hear me now, guys. There's no investment product, no mutual fund, no insurance policy, no nothing that in of itself will take you to glory. Okay. And everybody is touts this thing, this tactic, this product as their end all be all. They're full of crap. Hear me. All right. So now I'm getting mad, Josh.
I like it.
So I'm trying to tone it down. I'm getting hyped. So that's it. So that's just it. Mindset, skill set, network. So if you want to work on anything, you work on that, because let me add them to that point. Because here's what we teach. See, people ask, what do I invest in? Well, investing is not about buying something, it's about becoming something, right? So
Mm.
it's become, then do, then have, right? So you've got to want to become a real estate investor. If you like paper, you have to become a trader. Okay. You got to become, because there's asset classes, right? So instead of the products, there's four asset classes. This is out of Rich Dad's Guide to Investing and Who Took My Money, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's business, real estate, paper, commodities, right? Those are the four assets. And there's a lot of things in those asset classes, but those are the four. So you've got to figure out something that you like, that you're interested in, that you want to learn how to do.
I love that we've started this podcast saying that you have to have a vision. You have to have, you alluded to, first of all, what do you want it to look like at the end of 2024? What progress do you want to make? Get specific. You alluded to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which he talks in that book about creating this picture so real that you can feel it, see it, taste it, believe it, what a man can conceive and believe he can achieve.
Yeah.
And as we do that, as we create that future destination in time, and then we once it's burned into our head, right, the reticular activator then starts to bring about, oh, okay, I'm going to focus on paper, I'm going to focus on real estate, I'm going to focus on whatever that picture is. Now these things come into our conscious that we go, that's a step forward down the path, that I have this image of where I'm going. And it gets to where we want it to get to, is we have such clarity that it's like we have an anchor and we throw the anchor out in time, next year, next decade, when our kids leave the house, when we retire, whenever that vision is. And we just slowly pull ourselves towards that future
That is a
destination.
great, because you're pulling yourself. You can't. It's hard to reach a target you don't have.
That's it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And most people, he would say that most people are drifting. Like
Mm-hmm.
95% of the world have a chief definite aim, which is Hill
Mm-hmm.
calls it, right? And do not have a chief. 5% have like a
Right.
chief definite aim, right? 95% don't. They're drifting. And so most people are drifting, and they're worrying about inflation, and I can't make enough money, and the economy is bad. I don't care who's the president. I don't care um about the economy, because I can't control the economy. Okay. You know what I can control? I can control my personal economy,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can control my production and consumption as a family unit,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so Jim Rohn would say, listen, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. And my favorite saying with him is, "Look, the winds of adversity blow on us all. The difference is how you set the sail." And so when I talk about working on your mindset, skill set, network, I always work at setting a better sail, right? And
Mhm.
so you don't know, markets go up, markets go down, markets go sideways. Can you set a better sail? Because you can make money in all three. You should make money in all three, and you don't know how. And
Create
so,
it.
that's not easy. See, most people don't want to work. They don't want to think. You just want somebody, what fund can I buy, Curtis? Well, I ain't your guy then. I'm telling you right now. So, right, if you don't want to think, I'm not a good person to call because it's your money, not mine. So,
I love where we're going. I got two things out of this. You better have a goal. You better have a future vision of where you want to be, and you better take personal responsibility. So if we start with those two things, I think we're on a great conversation. Where do you want to go next, Curtis? If somebody's going into 2024 realizing that they're off course, that they've
yeah.
been drifting, how do we give them insight on how to stop drifting?
Well, I'll start with like when I talk about so one I would give you, if you want a simple, it's like principles, all successful people from Ray Dalio's book, Principles, all
Mm-hmm.
successful people operate using principles, you know. And so what your Jim Rohn would say, most people don't have a money problem, they have a philosophy problem,
Mm.
right? And so what's your philosophy? So we teach 5 principles and the 3 rules of investing. And
Love
so
it.
and so my framework is principles drive strategy. This is the practical wealth way kind of, and strategy drives tactics. Tactics are product that you buy. And so most people lead with the what's, just to go with Simon Sinek's thing, the product, but it's not
Yep.
about what, it's why. So it starts with why. What do you want, right? What is that your vision of what you want? And then that dictates what you do, right? So because it starts with that. It's like a GPS. Like, all right, here's where you want to go. But one of the things y'all have to do going to the year is you need to take stock of where you are now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And look at it. What is my net worth? What is my assets? What are my liabilities? What is my income? What is my outgo? You have to look at your financial statements because the numbers tell a story. Most people aren't, they don't even want to look at the story. And so, all progress begins with the truth. Okay. So I think that's an AA thing, right? And all so now that being said, let's look at the principle. So the first principle that we teach at Practical Wealth is, and this is right out of the Richest Man in Babylon. So understand, Curtis ain't got no original thoughts. All right. So so the first rule of wealth, part of all you earn is yours to keep.
Yes.
And I'll go, well, but Curtis, you don't understand. I don't make enough money. And by the time I pay all my bills, I don't have anything left over to say. Boom, there's your first problem. Because you think saving is an afterthought, right? And after I pay my bills, I'll see if I can save anything. So if you continue to think that way, you will be poor. Okay.
Yep.
And so I don't have time to be politically correct. So I'm just going to say it, right? And so because what happens is you have to pay yourself. Part of all you earn is yours to keep. You need to stamp that on your forehead. I'll give you a tactical, actual way to do that. But at first, it's a decision and a philosophy.
Yes.
Okay. I've made money, in the book, it talks about 10%. We teach 15% of your gross income.
Good.
Okay. So now let me give you a tactical thing to do that, right? So what I do is let's say somebody was making, I'm gonna do my calculator real quick. Let's say they're making $75,000 a year. Let's do easy number, 100,000, because I just don't feel like counting.
Make it easy.
So 100,000. So that means if you earn 100,000, a household income of 100,000, and they're still broke. Okay, that seems like a lot of money. People still broke at 100,000. Okay, but I want you saving 15% of that. Okay, which is 15,000. Right. So here's how if you still work for somebody, take that number and divide it by 26. Let's assume you get paid bi-weekly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's 576 a pay.
Mm-hmm.
So now saving is not a willpower thing. It has to be automatic and systematic. So
Yep.
now once you go to HR or your little portal and see if you can take 576 off the top, boom,
Yep.
and we're going to create a separate account that we label your wealth capture account. And
Wealth
then
what account?
we call it we actually call it a wealth coordination account, but I'm saying wealth capture.
Okay, got it. Wealth
So
capture. I
that
hear you.
the purpose is to capture wealth. So the first goal is your emergency fund, 2 or 3 months your income. But
Yep.
past that, then you need to have capital to look for things you can do to make more money,
Yep.
right? But you got to have it first, right? You got to capital, we call it capitalize. You got to capitalize your system. And so that's step one. And so that's a tactical way to start step one. I had a lot of people call me. I just did that thing you told me, Curtis. And they called me beforehand, but they tried it. And then they called me, right? And I said, hey, I've just by making, because what you do is you kind of do it now, but they do it in their 401k. That's not saving. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay. And that doesn't count because you're putting money out of your control for 25, 30 years. So let me define saving. Saving should be safe, liquid,
Mm.
accessible, guaranteed.
Mm.
Okay.
I
So I
like
want
that definition.
15% of your income going to that, just so we're specific. Okay. So that's principle one. Like if you can't do that, you can't do that's the where the game starts. And then in order to do that, you really have to go back to, and a lot of times we start people here, Josh, which is cash flow management, right? Because the game is won and lost, but how you manage cash flow. So you only need to talk about investing. The basic rules of the richest man in Babylon are pay yourself first, spend less than you make.
Yep. If everybody just stop the podcast right now and just, if you haven't done what Curtis has just described, just do that. And you are going to have a much better year in 2024 than 2023. I want to share a really quick story with you, Curtis. I did a podcast with a young man, really smart young man. And when he was going through college and doing his postgraduate work, he was a volunteer for a public service financial aid type government entity or assistance entity. And he basically gave financial counseling to retirees who didn't have enough money in retirement to make it. Like they had a nest egg and they had a life trajectory and they knew the nest egg was woefully insufficient to cover their lifespan. And so the idea was, hey, here's a public assistance to help you figure out Social Security, how do we leverage these different things, part-time jobs. And he said after doing that for 3 years, he came up with a thesis. And it backs up what you're saying. He said, here's the difference between wealthy people and poor people. I'm just going to use those words.
Yeah.
He said, poor people function like this: income minus spending equals savings.
Right.
Every single person that ended up in retirement age without enough assets had that equation running through their finances. Income minus spending equals savings. And he said, and then when I got out of that world and I started being a financial advisor to people with money, wealthy people way wealthier than me, guess what I learned? They had the equation backwards. Income minus savings equals spending. And he's like, it's just an equation issue. They just reordered the equation, and that makes the difference 30 years from now, whether you're wealthy or you're poor. And I thought that was just such a brilliant way to articulate that.
Listen, I'm stealing that. I just wrote that
Steal
down.
it.
So that's because that's a variation on the what's the guy? Profit first,
Yes.
income revenue minus expenses equals profits, right? From a business standpoint.
Yes.
And that's a mistake. It's the same thing, right? But what they teach in profit first is revenue minus profit minus owner's pay.
That's right.
You take profits first. And so you got to do the same thing in personal finance, right? Because I'm going to do I'm working on a training I'm doing tomorrow morning for our group, for our members. And based on something I heard Myron Golden say, let me finish the principles. Remind me to bring that back up because I don't want to. So the principles are, because these are found. So if you do this and because your goal is not retirement. Let's begin with the end in mind. Your goal is not retirement, right? So when you're hearing things like nest egg, so there's two schools of thought. Let me back all the way up. I'm sorry. So there's two schools of thought when it comes to money management. There's the accumulation theory.
Yep.
And there's the velocity method. Okay. So accumulation. So when you're hearing, and this is like 98% of people, this is what the financial institutions teach, right?
Conventional wisdom.
Conventional wisdom, right? Is buy and hold, dollar cost average, get out of debt, buy term investor difference. The S&P is the center of the universe. Um, but if you look, I was seeing some Fidelity report, the average 6-year-old has less than 150,000 in their 401k.
Mm.
Okay. So it doesn't work because
It ain't working.
you're trying to save in a fluctuating stock market because you're not saving, you're investing, but you're holding money, you're accumulating money in a fluctuating market that you can't control.
Yep.
You're saving monetary units called dollars. So
Yep.
the longer you hold them, the less they buy.
Yep.
And then you're deferring, but the more accurate word is postponing taxes, and the government will let you know how much they need when you get there, right? And I always ask people, do you think in the future would the government need more money or less? Okay, so is that where you want to have all your money, where you don't control the rules? So I'm just saying, I'm not saying, render on the Caesar with his seizures, but you ain't gotta leave him a tip. And so that's the accumulation theory, okay? And so when people ask me, what should I invest in? 401ks, HSAs, 529 plans. Bitcoin is a complete speculative assets, but those are tactics, those are products, but I'm telling you, the history has proven that plan doesn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you look at people with money, they focus on velocity of money, which is an economic principle of moving money in and out of assets, right? They focus on cash flow. They buy assets. What's an asset? Something that puts money in your pocket, right? So instead of having $1 million in a retirement account, what if you could get $8,000 a month off your passive income? That's
Mm-hmm.
It's actually more than that, because if you had $1 million, I had a client. She said, well, she was 51. She said, and she was making like 133,000 a year. She only had like 30,000 in her plan. She says, well, I want to retire. I was like, uh-huh. I said, well, if you had $1 million, you think you could retire? Yeah. Okay. So let's take $1 million. Let's use the safe withdrawal rate Wall Street lets you use, right? At 4%. Well, 4% of $1 million is 40,000. And you make over 100. And we're not even talking about inflation, right? So you just got to do a little bit of that's basic math. Like the math you get when you're looking at prospectuses and stuff, like that's BS. All right. I even, we'll come back to that. We have time. But I hate to blow up bubbles, but it's hard to reach the right outcome if you start out with the wrong premise, right? And the premise is based on the accumulation theory. Because if you look at what institutions do, they don't do that, right? They focus on
Right.
velocity. They would never lock money in anything up for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They teach you to buy and hold, but every mutual fund sells every stock in their portfolio at least once every year. So they don't even do that.
Mm.
Okay. And so that's what I'm saying. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. So stop doing what they tell you to do and do a little homework. Don't even take my word for it, and do what they do.
Right.
Right. And so it's out there. I interviewed this guy. Um, the book's called Powers in Manhattan by J. Barry Dyke. He's got Pirates of Manhattan 1, 2, and Guaranteed Income. Great, great, very technical. But he's an amazing researcher. And you see these corporations, they buy whole life like about a barrel full, permanent insurance. They buy annuities. Their 401ks are built in their non-qualified plans built with annuities and life insurance. They don't take risk. They don't gamble their future. So, we're playing a different game than what is conventional wisdom. And you got to learn about it, and you got to learn a little bit more. It's not cookie cutter. You got to kind of want to dig in. But they focus. So let me hit the three. So they focus on velocity, cash flow, leverage. So they're not
Mm-hmm.
trying to get out of debt. If a corporation, Apple, if they had $1 million in debt and $1 million cash, they would not pay the debt off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a balance sheet neutral decision, right? And they don't rent term insurance they buy permanent insurance and they build up equity and they use that equity to fund their businesses and have guaranteed coverages. So it's a completely different game. So that's the two schools of thought. So you've got to decide kind of what you want to be when you grow up. Right. And so now I ain't finished the principles. I'm gonna take a breath there because I can go on what is called a Curtis rant if you're listening to me at all. So I'm gonna come out of the rant. And
Let me ask you a quick question, Curtis. You talked about velocity of money, and I think people maybe kind of understand that, but it might be a little bit of a blind spot. So will you go a little deeper onto that?
yeah, so velocity. So here's the first example. So if I ever watched Shark Tank, right?
Mhm.
Mr. Wonderful, the first thing he knows when he puts money into a deal, he wants to listen. If I put $500,000 in this deal, what does he want to know? How soon am I getting my money back?
Mhm.
Right. So now, if you've got all of your money back, first of all, what's your risk now? Zero,
Yep.
because you got all your capital back. Right.
Yep. Playing
If
with
you're
house
getting
money.
cash flow, you're getting your capital back. Right. And so
Mhm.
your risk is going down because you're getting your money out the deal. Now, what is he doing? He's putting it into something else. Right.
Mhm.
So in different industries, they don't maybe call it velocity, but I want you to know what it is. So, for example, if you're in real estate, that's the Burr method, right? You're going to buy, rehab, refinance, repeat. Rehab, get it low, get up the value up. Then you're going to fix it. You're going to refinance, get your 100, 200,000 out tax free, and go put in another deal, right?
Yep.
That's velocity of money, right? I spoke year before last at the Laundromat Millionaire Conference, right? And I taught them about one of the strategies I teach, infinite banking. But what I showed them was um, and well, what I realized in talking to them, if you got, they always want to get bigger, more efficient machines, right? Because if the dryers dry faster and the machines wash faster, how many times can you turn that washer over and get more people in and out? If you see it in the
Mhm.
restaurant business, how often can you turn that table over?
That's a great
That's
analogy.
that's velocity.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, I know it's true for myself, and I've observed from others that people that aren't wealthy focus on how do I use this conventional logic and get out of debt, and people who are wealthy control assets, and those assets create cash flow. And those cash flows enable you to have a higher velocity of money because you get to reinvest the cash flows. And when interest rates are conducive, you get to pull money out, as Curtis said, tax free by borrowing against that asset. And the cash flow pays for that mortgage or that indebtedness.
Yeah,
But
your
now you
tenant's
have,
paying for it.
you're speeding up the
Yeah.
velocity because
Yep.
now I got to pull that money out tax free and go buy another asset. And then that asset appreciates. Then that asset, you pay down the debt. Then that asset creates cash flow. And I got to go rinse and repeat and buy another one. And that's velocity of money. And all of a sudden, you got all these turbines spinning and spinning out cash for you. And you get to really fast forward your wealth trajectory.
But what does it take to do that? Knowledge, right? That's when it goes
Mm-hmm.
back to becoming, right? So
Yes.
you've got to want to become. And that's see, and so you got to make that decision because if you say, well, all right, I want to become financially free, right? Not retirement, right? So financial retirement's an age, and it's really not a good objective because it means to put out of use, right? So the
Yes.
withdrawal to put out of use. So is that what you want? I ask people, but financial freedom is a capability, right? Passive income greater than your expenses.
Escape the rat race.
And so, but see, so if that's your objective, then you've got to analyze. So now when you go back and you look at your financials, is what I'm doing taking me there? I was working with this firefighter last night and he had all this money going into deferred comp and but meanwhile he's looking at properties because he's in his real estate group that I speak at that I'm taking him through you reorganizing his stuff. I was like, you're putting all this money away. You're 50, right? And things you can't touch for 9 years, but and you got only have $7,500 in savings. Okay. And he makes $15,000 a month. I say, look, 3 months of that is uh what is that?
45.
45,000.
Yep.
So you don't need to be putting nothing nowhere until you have at least 3 months of your $15,000 income set aside, right? So, like, people say, "Kurt, what can I invest in?" Do you have 3 months of your bills set aside? Nothing. Don't talk to me about a mutual fund, don't talk about EFT, don't talk to me. The best I'll let you do is I view and so if you get a little enterprise, like your fastest path to cash is a business, right?
Mhm.
So I had one of my clients, for example, so he used the insurance policy we set up, but we teach how to use that. But he borrowed I saw $8,000 loan come through. I'll give you another idea of velocity, right? Um, and one of my Saturday calls, we talked about I challenge people, what can you do to make money? I always get people thinking about what skills do you have, what can you use to make money. So we got to talk about car rentals, and I didn't know think anything of it. I saw a loan come through. Curtis, yeah, I bought a what do you tell me? I bought a car. I bought a Nissan Sentra 2010 with 120,000 miles on it. He put it on something called hire car because it's Turo, there's hire car, but hire car will take older, higher
Okay.
mileage cars. $38 a day. He said within 2 days it was rented out. The guys, last time I checked, still has the car because they keep the car longer. So you like that better, right? And so
Ah,
I just figured out, listen, if he averages $38 a day and he keeps the car out for 25 days, that's $950 a month
wow.
cash flow off a $6,000 investment. So now can you now beef up your savings so you can build your pool capital faster, and now you got the down payment to go buy a triplex or so, and so guess what he did? He says, okay, he bought another car. So now he's got two cars, and now he's got $1,800 a month. This is within the last 90 days, 60, 90 days. This is a news from that off of something he heard and went out and did some research and probably did a couple of YouTube. He didn't even take a course. He just, okay, I looked at the app, I saw how it worked, I bought this car, boom, new cash flow. Right. That
Invested in
is see,
himself.
invest in himself. See, so and that's you've got to want the ball. But we were talking about before we recorded, Replacements, one of my favorite movies of all time with Keanu Reeves, and he says winners want the ball. And so you've got to want the ball when it comes to your finances, right?
There it
So,
is.
and I tell people what I do, Josh, is I'm the defensive coordinator. Like he did that. I didn't do that. I did plant the seed,
Mhm.
which is what I do.
Mhm.
But I make sure so there's offense and defense. So I work with some gurus and some people that do franchising or real estate investment or syndications. That's offense, right? Offense is your job. Like how can you throw the ball down the field, right? And score. And people always want to focus on offense. But when I look at so then what I do, Josh, is I make them go backwards because I think they are building houses on sand,
Mhm.
right? And so their fundamentals are out of whack. So they're not saving because they're taught, oh, cash is trash, and um you just wait and just keep, just stay poor. Just put all your money in your properties. No, you need liquidity. Stuff happens. COVID happens. You got to have money. Okay,
Yep.
you got to have access to capital. You don't even want. I don't want to be all lines of credit because lines of credit can get closed depending on how the
Right.
bank is feeling, right? So you need to control the financing function. So good financial planning is not investing. Last time I checked, nobody has a working crystal ball. So it's not all these illustrations and how much you need at retirement. I don't let people think past like 3 years. Okay. And most of it's provisioning, right? If this, then that, right? What could go wrong? So it's save, it's protect, right? So the main thing that we teach on is playing defense, which is the principle is called maximum protection. So we literally look at all of their insurance stuff there. You got to protect your stuff, right? Auto, home, proper liability coverages. Most people, if they look at their stuff, they're underinsured. So if you were
Yep.
at a at fault accident, boom, you're exposed.
Yep.
You're not even aware. Do you have an umbrella coverage? People say, "Oh, I got all my properties in LLCs." Hello, LLC means limited liability company, right? So let's spend 5, 6, $700 a year, get 1 million of like umbrella coverage, and let the lawyers go to work for you in case some stuff happens. Somebody trips and falls on one of your properties, right?
Yep.
What happens if you get hurt and can't work? God forbid, what happens if you pass away? That's life insurance, but it's asset protection, right? There's things like will. I just had a great interview on an attorney. We broke down wills, trust, healthcare directives, just broke it down because that's all part of principle two, protection. People say, well, I want to trust, I want this, I'll put my house in trust. Yes, but there's estate planning. So you're hearing pieces of the overall thing. And half these people are talking about it are not even attorneys, right? So, I have a problem with that, right? So, because I don't know if you're supposed to practice law without a law license. So I'm just saying. And so they feel some kind of way about it for sure. Okay. When I talk to his attorney. But so that's principle two. The third principle is full replacement of assets at death guarantee. I'll finish this. And it's one is what I teach against is the myth of self-insurance, right? So there's this myth out there that, hey, if you just get term insurance, invest the difference, and when you have all this money, you don't need life insurance no more, or you don't need no insurance no more. That's stupid. I'm not, I don't even, but think about this. I'm gonna give you an analogy. So if you had a house, let's say you got a house, right? And you have homeowners insurance. If you paid your mortgage off, would you drop the homeowners insurance?
I would not.
You would not, right? So now let's say your house worth $500,000 and you invested the difference. You had $500,000 to cover the house fund. Would you drop your homeowner's insurance now?
No, sir.
No. So because with your insurance, transferring the risk to insurance company does what? Frees up your 500,000 to do whatever you want with because you've transferred the risk to the insurance company and spread the premium out because it's just a bunch of people working together to insure a common cause and you spread the risk out. And so life insurance is the same thing as asset protection. You as the asset, it gives you permission to spend your money. Let's say you're a couple. Most people are worrying about running out of money. Back to that example, because you're all going to run out of money because you're not safe. You're
Yep.
focused on this nest egg, but you don't have enough money. But what the insurance does is it gives you permission to spend because not if one of you die, when you die, it provides a tax-free fill up of the money bucket.
Yep. Great
Okay. The
analogy.
fourth principle is liquidity, right? 6 to 12 months of liquidity. Now I'm not going to talk about where right now, but it's liquid, cash or cash equivalent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then fifth principle is velocity of money, the velocity method, right? So using your capital to buy or build cash flowing assets. It's got to be your focus. So if you follow the principles are designed to help you become and remain financially free because you're focused on your business, yourself, which is your number one assets. You're focused on cash flow. And if you focus on cash flow every year and just keep building your paradigm around, I got to get better, I've got to buy cash flow, you will become financial. You don't have to worry about retirement because you'll have the cash flow and you can do whatever you want to do.
That's right.
So that was a long-winded thing. I hope that was helpful,
It was
Josh.
very helpful. It was very helpful. And you and I look at money very similarly. That it is a means by which to create freedom, and that cash flow model versus the accumulation model. For me, it's a much more philosophically inspiring way to think about investing. The accumulation model is I'm going to save money in these traditional vehicles, and then I'm going to pray to God that I die before I run out of money. Right? I mean, that is not
That's the
inspiring to
plan,
me.
and it's crazy. That's the plan.
That's
I
the
hope I don't
plan.
die for running out of money. I
Yeah.
hope this is enough money. Hope ain't a good strategy.
That just does not inspire me. But we have this worksheet where we show folks that, all right, here's strategy A that you're on, and when you end up with the accumulation method, and then you take 4% a year, here's how much dollars you're going to be able to live on. Hopefully, we hope that that'll get you through your retirement. Or what about this alternative strategy? What if over the next 20 years, you just moved every 5 years and turned your departing residence into a cash flow positive rental property? And in 20 years, we forecast what those rents would be. Oh, you can have as much passive cash flow from the rents from those 4 or 5 properties over 20 years as you have savings your entire life in the accumulation method. But now you're living off the cash flow. You're not living off the principal of those assets.
Right.
So I love what
And
you're
it's
teaching.
taxed better the way you're
Oh,
talking about.
yep,
And it's you're doing it with leverage, right? I always tell people, look, if you want $1 million worth of equities, you need $1 million, right? No,
right,
no leverage there, right?
right.
And where if you want $1 million of real estate, the real answer is it depends, right? Depends on your knowledge. But let's say 20, 25%, right?
Right.
And then you can get the bank will loan you money. Cause see, rich people, one of the things Kiyosaki will always say, him and what's this guy? Ken
Macklemore,
Macklemore, right? He
Mackleby,
says, listen, we use they use debt as money, right? Debt is
OPM.
money. OPM. They use other people's money because the bank will loan you money to buy that, but it's a financing game, so you have to be more financially literate. But if you're saving fiat currency that's going down every day, whereas they're using banks to buy a real thing, like real house, a real property, a real business that has utility value. You've
Yep.
got what does the guy call it? Prepackaged commodities, wood, you know,
Right.
brick, that you're into
Steel.
what is called a house, right? Into a house, and that things that are real that you use fake money to get that throws off cat real
Cash.
fake money back to you, you get to spend. And then, oh yes, the government will tax it more favorably, if at all, because you're doing what Tom Wheelwright says, what the government wants you to do, because the tax system is an incentive plan,
That's
right?
right.
And what does the government want you to do? Provide housing. What do they need? They need housing, they need jobs, they need food, and they need energy, right? So if you will organize your affairs to help partner with the government to get done what they want to get done, you will substantially reduce your tax burden.
Exactly right.
We just
Beautiful.
don't know the game.
So let's close in a similar way we started, Curtis, because we covered a lot of ground here. This was a really fun podcast. And you and I, before we kicked off, we said, hopefully we're gonna piss somebody off here. We're gonna challenge somebody's thinking. We're gonna kill a sacred cow. I think we did that. I think we did a
Okay,
good job at that.
good. My job here is done.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. But I wanna close with a little bit of parting advice from you. Let's go back to where we started. Somebody realizes they've gotten off the path. Inflation, the job market, whatever, has taken them off the path of moving forward towards their financial goals. Where do you want to direct them or point them? And this could be wide open. This could be knowledge based. This could be investment opportunity based, whatever you want. Where should they channel their energy going into 2024?
I would say I think it goes back to learning to set a better sail,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I would have them. One of the things I challenge people is to read, 8 to 12 pages a day. Like if you can read a book a month on money, the right books in the Rich Dad vein, Laurel Langmeyer, focused on you buying and building assets. If you do that, like, and get a group of people together where y'all are studying it, like-minded people that are trying to get ahead, you got to get around people that are trying to do what you're trying to do, or preferably ahead of you, that have
Mm-hmm.
done what you're trying to do,
That's
right?
right.
If you do that this time next year, you can be a different person. And so it starts there.
Well, that dovetails perfectly with your premise that knowledge is our number one asset.
Be
So
consistent, right? So
back to Curtis's principles. This was a lot of fun, Curtis. Thank you so much. I'll just share kind of in closing, this is the last podcast of 2023. I have asked the permission of my wife and kids that I can have 8 hours of alone time. We're going on vacation starting next week. And on December 23rd, I have 8 hours blocked out. I
wow.
am recreating for myself exactly what Curtis said when we started this podcast. I created I think he calls it an indelible image of where you want your future to be from a financial and life perspective and Think and Grow Rich. And I realized that I have achieved that image that I created for myself 23 years ago. And I need to reset that picture of where I'm going in the next 20 years. And I have 8 hours to dream by myself on an island, nobody but Josh. And I'm going to set that vision. And then I'm going to work back from there. And I'm going to say, and what does success look like at the end of 2024? And what is it going to look like at the end of 2034 to kind of pave my way there? So if you haven't set that time aside for yourself, this is the birth of a new year. Do that. Give yourself that gift to end 2023 and start 2024 and set your path. Because I think that's really a beautiful ending to this podcast that we could leave these folks with, Curtis.
Yeah, I know to add to help them with that. Three things came to mind when you said that. One, I need to do that. I heard the second time I heard that and get away. I saw a video say with your wife. So, but I like doing it alone. But I think we should do it together, right? And
Oh, that's a good call. Somebody's got to watch these kids of mine.
Curtis. Right. No. And but I like going away to an island. So we'll start with that. But I was thinking when you said that, like, because sometimes you don't know how to think about that stuff. Right? Yes. How do you organize your time? So I'll give them 3 resources that I use as I do this. One is the 12-week year, whose name of the guy escapes me right now. And the 12-week year, how to get more done in 12 weeks than most people get done in 12 months. And it'll kind of give you an operating system so that you can stay a little bit more focused and make sure that you're getting the most out of every day, every week. Right. So as you lay out your goals, then you have to have a game plan of implementation, or it doesn't mean anything. So that's the back part. Brian Moran. Right.
Yes.
And right. Yeah. So that one. And then I would get 2 books by Ben Hardy, Be Your Future Self Now.
So good.
And the other one, 10X is easier than 2X.
So good.
All of them really, but those are 2 that the gap in the gain is because I found out, Josh, if you read it, I'm always in the gap, and I had to stop beating myself up. So I stay in the gap.
I noticed that earlier where you said, don't beat yourself up if you only made this gain and your goal was this. You came a long way from where you were. That's a perfect illustration of the gap in the gain.
I had to learn that because my wife would get sick of me because I would have an amazing quarter and I'm pissed off because I didn't hit my goal. Now that's good because most of y'all are achievers and hard chargers, but you're always frustrated.
Yep. We don't want to live that way.
And you can't live in the and you do with your kids. Well, I got a B plus. Well, why didn't you get an A? What are the 4 questions you missed? That's in the gap. Kids stay in the gap because they put so much pressure on themselves. Our kids will break out in tears if they got a B plus, that kind of stuff. So you got to, that's an off thing, but that's important though, because it's just about life. And so that was it. I would listen to the Practical Wealth Show if you want more madness like this, or what I call the madness that is Curtis, right? And so this is fun. So I didn't go too long. You made me think about that. I wanted to throw my little 2 cents in.
I think it's great. And Curtis, if somebody is listening to this and they know that they're not a reader and they're like, yeah, I should probably read those books, but I'm just never going to do it. Okay. Go find a podcast with Brian Moran where he talks about the 12-week year. Go find a podcast, or Ben Hardy has an incredible YouTube channel where he encapsulates all this knowledge that eventually becomes books in about 8 to 15-minute YouTube videos. You can listen to it on 1.5x while you're driving. So take forward movement, right? Focus on that gain. And
you have to get this stuff into your head. That's the first step. You got to get this stuff into your head, and then you'll start to see your paradigm will slowly change, right? And then you've got to cut off the TV.
Yep.
You've got to cut off toxic people, and you got to get around people that will support your wild vision. I want to be financially free in 3 years. Okay. And you need to have somebody, and because you say, okay, yeah, I want $6,000 a month in 3 years of passive income. I'm going now that I'm gonna support that. I'm gonna say, is that all you want? Rich can be arranged. I had somebody tell me one time. So
I love it. Yeah, fall in love with the gain more than you are in love with the gap.
Yes.
Curtis, how do people find you, follow you, coach with you, learn from you?
So I would say if you go to practicalwealth.net, I'll give it to you for your show notes. then you go there. I have the you can check out our YouTube channel. We have the podcast either on YouTube or on iTunes. Uh, you can also
And is that the Practical Wealth podcast? Is that right?
yeah, it's Practical Wealth
Okay,
Show podcast,
got it.
and I'm on Instagram at Curtis May 4766, but on LinkedIn, I'm on all that stuff. But I would say follow the YouTube channel. You can actually go to our website. I actually gave your listeners, I have gave you a gift of a report that encapsulates the principles. It's called, a 3-step formula for financial freedom, which is not the name of the podcast, but I can't the report, but it's in the page that you'll see in the show notes.
Yep,
And
I'll
then
share my screen right now for anybody on YouTube. You're going to get a link to download
that's it.
this, the
Principle, yeah,
five
principle of
principles
financial
of
success.
financial success.
And it breaks down everything I said. And then also or if you text be the bank, all one word, all caps to 55444. That's be the bank to 55444. You'll either get that report or you'll get creating wealth using velocity of money. I forget which one, but you'll get something good, right? And then you'll be on our email list, and you'll get a email in the email my calendar link. And if you'd like a complimentary consultation, all my stuff will lead to the ability to have a call with us. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about, no obligation. And I'll give you 30 minutes of my big brain. Right.
I love it. Well, thank you. You are incredibly generous. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom. Thanks for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing those gifts with our audience. We will leave links to these things in the description. And I just can't thank you enough for being here for the Infinite Financial Freedom Podcast, Curtis.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Pleasure. Pleasure's
Tom.
all mine.